ॐ जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ. Om. O gods, may we always hear with our ears what is auspicious. O worshipful ones, may we with our eyes always see what is auspicious. May we live our allotted life hale and hearty, offering our worship unto thee. May Indra of ancient fame bestow auspiciousness on all of us. May the all-nourishing portion be propitious to all of us. May Garuda, the destroyer of all evil, be well disposed towards all of us. May Brihaspati ensure all our welfare. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all. Practically, we are coming to the end of this Gaudapada's explanation of this Mandukya Upanishad. This is the last and fourth chapter. We are in the 78th Karika or verse. What is the essence of this? The shlokas we have, the verses that we have already covered, that Gaudapada wants to drill into our minds the fact that we are pure Brahman. We never had any birth. Therefore, everything associated with birth, like growth, etc., this is called Shadurmi. The sixfold changes do not exist. But with our present experience, we are in this world. We feel that there are innumerable beings, not only beings but non-living things also, which we are experiencing, living as well as non-living. One thing common about both these, their objects. Objects means the target of my experience. Therefore, following the golden teaching of Vedanta, whatever I experience is not me, I am something separate. So this body-mind complex is that prism through which we experience what we call the waking state, dream state, as well as dreamless, they are deep sleep state, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. And we are convinced that this is the reality. But Gaudapada wants to remind us there must be a definition of reality. Whatever doesn't change at any given time, that means that which is beyond time. That means time is equated with change. And beyond time means changeless, which means eternal. And that alone is the definition of truth. Trikala abadhitam satyam. But that is the truth. That is from the highest point of view. But as of now, we are having three states continuously, one after the other. All these three not only are changing one after the other, they contradict each other. What we think is real in the waking state is not real, a totally different reality in the dream state, and the absence of even the concepts of reality and non-reality in the dreamless state. So naturally we are experiencing, and whatever we are experiencing depends upon the experiencer, and the experiencer is totally different. Now this is the truth, but that is a goal. We have to attain to that goal. So first step is to practice whatever I am experiencing is not me. Second step, that all these things, they are totally dependent upon me. This is a marvelous truth. Supposing there is a person, he loves another person, and he thinks, I am getting so much of joy, happiness, pleasure from this other person. Now, is the other person giving this happiness, or it is the false notion in the mind of the experiencer? And even we can understand that sometimes we don't enjoy happiness, sometimes downright unhappiness from the same object, sometimes terrible disgust, terrible what we call disassociation. We wish to run away from these things. What does it prove? Proves that if I think there is happiness, I get happiness. If I think it is full of sorrow and suffering, I get suffering. Just as in dream, whatever we think, that becomes a reality. Apply the same thing to everything that is experienced. If we have positive idea and the object remains positive, so long as we can maintain that positive attitude. Then, what is the truth? The truth is me, which is unchanging. So what is the trouble? Why do I go on swinging from one extreme to the other extreme in the form of sometimes happy, sometimes unhappy? Because mind is the root cause. Mind thinks this is very beautiful, very enjoyable, let me enjoy. And the same mind after some time thinks this is disgusting, it doesn't give me happiness, let me be as far away as possible from it. And that is what happens. This analysis of this experience, especially in our dream states, is very useful in our day-to-day, what we call waking state. Of course, when we enter into deep sleep state, there is neither happiness nor unhappiness, a profound state of darkness, ignorance. But it gives a sort of happiness because we neither experience happiness or unhappiness, etc. There is no even subject-object division. Dichotomy is absent there. True, but we do not know who we are. Therefore, all the three states change, contradict, and therefore, I alone am the truth. And if this is true, then what is my reality? And what are these three things? Everything that changes is time-bound, space-bound, and object-bound, limited by time, space, and causation. What is the cause of this causation, of this limitation of these three? Mind. Mind, the very constitution of the mind, is a time, space, and causation. And when we can transcend the mind, all these problems will automatically disappear. And then what would be my state? This is the experience of sages who went beyond the mind, beyond time, space, causation, and they said that is the permanent state That is the only real state, and practically it is indescribable, excepting whatever we experience in these three states is not that. This is called negativity. That is, first we negate everything, then we negate the very instrument by which we negate all these three states, and then it is possible to go beyond the mind. This is the essence, and for that we have to practice to do spiritual disciplines. And the essence of all spiritual disciplines is how we can control our mind. This was exactly what Patanjali was hinting at. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. When we go beyond the power of the mind, the limitation of the mind, that means beyond time-space causation, what remains is our own true nature. And that is why he said, tada drashtu, that we remain as ourselves. Drashtu swarupe avasthana. Once a person knows who I am truly, thereafterwards, nothing, no illusion, no delusion can ever bind him. That is the essence of this, not only what we discussed earlier, but what is going to come practically to the end of this Mandukya Karikas. In our last class, we have been studying 78th shloka. Buddhva animittatam satyam hetum prithak na apnuvan vitashokam tatha kamam abhayam padam ashnute. Having thus realized the absence of causality as the ultimate truth, and also not finding any other cause for birth, one attains to that state of liberation which is free from grief, desire and fear. Again, this is to instill into our minds that in our state of bondage, constantly these three are going on. First there comes desire, then there comes fear, then there comes grief. This is a beautiful analysis. If there is a mind, if you can imagine a mind without any desires, then there will be absolutely no fear. Because fear comes, the true reason for fear is twofold. Two causes are mentioned why we fear. What are those two? That first of all, we may lose what we already have. I have wealth, I may lose it. I may have health, I may lose it. I have beauty, I may lose it. Not may, definitely we will lose it. Even though we do not actually think in those lines, when we are not aware of a thing, we have already lost it. Of course, in deep sleep, a rich man doesn't know that he is a rich person. A young man doesn't know he is a young person. He doesn't know a prisoner about to be executed next morning. He doesn't know his body is going to be executed next morning. He has absolutely no fear at all. So this is the first cause of fear. Whatever we have, we might lose, and definitely whatever can be lost will be lost. Murphy's law is there. Something can go wrong, and it will definitely go wrong. If there are many reasons for change, and everything will happen at some point of time, or rather sometimes all at the same time. What is the second reason? We have so many unfulfilled desires, and somehow we hope against hope that we might be able to fulfill and thereby derive some happiness. And fear is always lurking. I may not get what I'm expecting to get. This beautiful discrimination between what I have and what I am expecting to have, and both can be lost. And why should they be lost? Because whatever is separate from me will be lost. I am separate from the body, so body can be lost. I am separate from the mind, so mind can be lost. But what I am, that can never be separated from me, and therefore there is no question of losing it. And what is the nature of this I? We are profoundly ignorant of it. That is where the scripture comes and tells us. Actually, the scripture teaches two things: the unreality of the world and the reality of oneself. Even though we don't know about the self, we require to know about the self. The scripture is telling your true nature is this, somehow it is justified. But we are arrogant, thinking, I am in the world, I know the world, but we behave as if we are profoundly ignorant of the world. What does it mean? It means, even though the world is there, first of all, continuously it is changing. From birth until death, my body is changing, my mind is changing. So every single object in this world is continuously changing. As I mentioned earlier, time means change. Therefore, if everything is changing, do I behave, accept that everything is changing? What it means is, now I am happy, but it will change. Then I will be unhappy. Then that also will change. I am born, that will change. Death is the final change. Birth, growth, youth, middle age, old age, disease, decay, and death. So everything is changing. Do I realize that fact? So if somebody loves me, I think it is permanently I am going to be loved. And if I am loving somebody, permanently I am going to love that person. But such a notion is a most horrid notion in the world, most delusional notion in the world, because everything is changing. Simple example, a hot prepared meal right now may be very delicious, but keep it for a few days, starts decomposing itself. And it is no longer not only not desirable, but not only disgusting, it can be terribly poisonous also. Are we accepting that? No. We hope to love somebody and to be loved by somebody, and it will be eternal and permanent, even though every day, whenever we think of any other object, already our love for a particular object is completely forgotten. If we can keep it in mind, then we are liberated souls. But unfortunately, bondage comes with the mistaken notion that everything is permanent. I will be living forever, and I will be loving forever, I will be loved forever, I will be happy forever, etc., etc. So we have to awake, but we do not understand this truth. So the scripture has to tell us what is the reality about the world and what is the reality about my own self. This is what Gaudapada is telling again and again in the 78th Karika. Buddha, having thoroughly understood, not merely intellectual understanding, but realizing and knowing this is the permanent truth, eternal truth. What is it? Nimittatam satyam. That is the birth of this world. That means birth of my body, birth of my mind, everything that is related with birth. That is, there is no cause. Because the theory of causality, cause and effect, always go together. If there is no effect, you can't think of cause. If there is no cause, you cannot think of the effect. If one goes, the other thing also disappears. Therefore, once having realized through spiritual practice, hetum prithak na apnuvan. And there is hetu means the cause of birth or rebirth, prithak. So, besides the theory of causality, there is no other theory or cause for birth. That means, simple words, there is no world. It is ajati, never born. We are only thinking it is born, just like we see many dreams, many marvelous things, and having not obtained any other cause for the birth of this world, and what we have been thinking, that one cause, that this God has created this world, He is maintaining this world, and He will be destroying this world. Even that also we transcended. Having attained to that state, there is no birth. That means I have no birth. What happens? He attains ashnute. He attains. Attains what? Padam. That particular state. Padam means particular state. What is the state? Qualified by, first of all, Vita Shokam. There is no grief. This is called the state of blissfulness, absolute bliss. Tatha Kamam. And when a person is very happy, he will not desire anything. This is a marvelous truth, whether it is small happiness or big happiness. People rarely notice this psychological truth. What is it? Suppose you are eating a sweet, maybe very ordinary sweet, but there is nothing called ordinary and extraordinary. If you think the extraordinary is ordinary, or you may think the ordinary is extraordinary, and when you are very hungry, even the most ordinary food happens to be extraordinarily attractive. So, this person, he will not have any desire so long as he remains in this state of happiness. This is an astonishing fact. Maybe the happiness of what is called chewing gum or chocolate or a lozenge you are putting in your mouth and you are enjoying it. So long as there is that experience of happiness, you will not desire second thing. This is okay, but it would have been better if I had got something else. Or this is first class, so it would be nice if I can have a second one. All these sort of thoughts can come only when that happiness comes to an end, and after that the mind thinks. That means the mind will not think anything else. It just experiences, though for a short time, that bliss. That is called Vita Shokam. That is devoid of any type of unhappiness. And in that state, Kamam na jayate. There would be no desire for anything. And then, because desire is the root cause of fear, as we discussed, that what I may lose what I have, or I may not get what I want, such a state will not have when a person transcends the false belief called causality. Then abhayam padam ashnute. He attains to his own true state, which is devoid of grief, devoid of desire, devoid of fear. In human language, this is the highest description anybody can give. There is no other way. So by describing the state of liberation to be a state of one's own existence in which grief, desire and fear have no place at all. And then Gaudapada discreetly indicates a state of experience completely detached from all our false identifications from our body, mind, intellect. And then what is the cause of our grief? Sri Ramakrishna says, quoting a Bengali saying, Panchabhuter phande, Brahma pode kande. Ishvara falling into the net of the 5 elements, he weeps. That means what? Ishvara forgets, God forgets, I am the God. He might think I am a dog, reverse. So, but when the knowledge comes, dawn of knowledge lies beyond the choking streets of these illusory phantoms and their false threats. And the same thought is carried on in the 79th Karika. Abhuta abhiniveshadhi sadrushe tat pravartate vastu abhavam sa buddha eva nissangam vinivartate. All these karikas are, I would say, gems of truth. Even though the language I wish would be a little more simpler, if it was Shankaracharya, he had the talent much better than his grand guru to put these ideas in much, much better ways. I mean, the very language is very pleasant, most marvelous, beautiful, poetical language, but expressing the same meanings. So, why do people suffer? This is the translation of the 79th Karika. On account of attachment to the unreal objects, the mind runs after such objects. But it comes back to its own pure state when it becomes unattached to objects, realizing their unreality. What is the essence of the 79th? Our deep attachment to objects. What do we mean by deep attachments? Are we really, when we analyze what we call our concept of this world, our concept of attachment or even detachment, I love, I hate, and both are direct causes of bondage. If you say, I hate this person, it doesn't mean you are free. You are in greater bondage. Why? Because your hatred makes you forget your God, yourself, and makes you think only that particular person. Whether you are fearing, whether you are desiring, whether you are running after some object, any attachment to this world, and the world is called an object. So the whole world is an object, but it changes its forms into myriad ways. So, abhuta abhiniveshat. Bhuta means what? Unreality here. Unborn world. So there is you go to a magician's show, magic show, and you are telling everybody, I am going to a magical show. And by that you imply 100% correctly that this is just an appearance, there is no reality. But supposing you forget your own understanding and you become, oh, that rabbit, the most marvelous rabbit I have seen, I would like to possess it. Because we have to extend our imagination. If a magician can bring out a rabbit, is that the only thing he could do? Can he bring out a beautiful young woman, or can he not? When is it possible to bring out a very talented, good-looking young man? Absolutely. Anything. A rich man? Yes. A poor man? Yes. A happy man? Yes. An unhappy person? Yes. A ferocious tiger? Yes. If a magician has that power of bringing rabbits, he can bring out anything. And in our Vedantic terminology, Maya is called the magician. So everything that we experience is a magic, including our friends, our enemies, our what we call a desirable object, undesirable object, etc. So what happens? We are deeply attached. And that is where my Gurudeva Yatishant Maharaj used to point out that if I dislike something, if I hate something, that hatred is greater bondage than attachment itself. Why? Because we think, I hate this thing, so I am not attached to it. In fact, my mind thinks is more attached in the sense, the mind runs after this hated thing, thinks more and more and more. Not only that, the more we think what we don't like, the more our hatred grows, the more the strength of the attachment grows. So this is the truth. So we are attached either positively or negatively. And because of this abhinivesha, that is, what is the root cause of attachment? Our body and of course our mind. Sadrushe tat pravartate. A person who is terribly attached to any object in this world, both in the form of like and dislike, and he has no choice but to behave according to his liking or disliking. What does it mean? Means if he likes, he will run towards that object. He wants to possess that object. He wants to be united with that object. But if somebody dislikes, he wants to run away. But because the attachment to that hatred is in the mind, wherever he runs, even if the object be a billion miles away, but as if it has possessed him like a ghost. We have to be extremely careful. So we are all under the magical show of this what we call Mahamaya. So therefore, we have no choice. We are forced to behave as we are behaving. That is why we are born, we grow, and we run after certain things. We try to run away from certain things, and this phenomena happens again and again and again. This is called sadrushe tat pravartate. Helplessly, we are carried by the stream of our own delusional thinking. Vastva bhavam sabuddhva eva. But a time will come, by good actions done in many lives, by the grace of God, by the grace of good people, cultivating holy company, etc. Vastu abhavam sabuddhva eva. I am running after phantoms. Really such a thing doesn't exist at all. Nissangam, and then he becomes detached, disassociated, and he will turn away. What does turn away means? All this time he is thinking that my welfare, my happiness, my meaning of my life, everything depends upon something outside me. But now he understands. Everything depends upon something which is within me, not which is without me. That is outside me. And then what does he do? He will turn avrutta chakshuhu amrutatvam icchan. He becomes restless, like a musk deer trying to find out the intoxicating fragrance that is emanating from its own navel. Nisangam vinivartate. That means what? He gives up his attachment. That means he understood through discrimination, through viveka, and then viveka is naturally followed by vairagya. That means when once we come to know this is poison, it is a death to me, we don't need to practice what we call dispassion. Automatically, the mind will turn away from that if we understand properly. This is what he wants to say. Why are we so much clinging to this world, or why is there so much of strong bondage? On account of our attachment to the unreal objects. But we will never be attached if we think it is unreal, but we think it is very real. Therefore, the mind runs after such objects. But a time will come when it understands what I am running after is just mere phantoms of the brain, and it comes to its own pure state. And it goes on searching inside. Then it understands, I am the cause of my own misery. And then slowly it purifies itself, It experiences higher states, and one day it understands, I am the self, I am Brahman, etc. So these are two phenomena: detachment from the external objects, attachment to one's own truth of the self. Both take place. Sri Ramakrishna had put it so beautifully: as a man is progressing towards the east, he need not make special effort to distance himself from the west. Automatically it takes place. So Gaudapada is telling here that our mind is running after the objects and we are being pulled by the mind, because whatever the mind says, we are only, you stand and we stand. The mind says sit, we sit. Now you sleep and then we sleep. You experience waking, we experience the waking. Mind says now dream, and we go into the dream state. And then it says now you stop thinking and we go into the deep sleep state. But slowly by experiencing negative things for a long time, we become awakened, and then our very nature will change. So this is called the arising of discrimination. By discriminatingly understanding that we should not rely upon any sense object, because I understand their nature, the mind slowly but steadily comes away from its wanderings. Ramakrishna, how beautifully he is illustrating these truths, again from the Upanishads only. Remember Ramakrishna's illustration of a bird. Once a bird happened to sit on a ship which was anchored in a particular place, and it went to sleep. But meanwhile, while it was sleeping, the ship, that anchor is lifted off, and slowly it started going deeper into the sea. By the time the bird woke up, it was seeing only water all around. Then it flows to the east, and after some time it doesn't see the land, it comes back. Similarly, it flows to the south, west, north. Nowhere it doesn't get any rest. Then it just comes back, sits on the mast, and then remains completely restful, unperturbed. What is that mast? The truth hidden within each one of us. The body, mind are traveling in this ocean of the world, and that is compared to the ship. A ship is meant for a travel, like a train or aeroplane or a bus or anything, but at the same time that we are attached to that. But once we come to know that through the help of the world, there is no end to the world. You enjoy anything, billions of more things will come. But once we are tired of the searching, and then we do not find permanent rest, then we come back, we turn our attention inward, and then we see. This beautiful example we get in the both Brihadaranyaka and Chandogya also. So therefore, what is the way out? Gaudapada is advocating discrimination as a remedy for all the problems of this world. What is discrimination? That the world is unreal, and world means our own body and mind, but within this body and mind, there is the self is there, and we have to turn our attention to it. And this is what he wants to convey in the 80th Karika. Nivrittasya apravrittasya nischalahi tatha sthitihi vishaya sahi buddhanam tat samyam ajam advayam. The mind, thus freed from attachment to all external objects and undistracted by fresh objects, attains to its own state of immutability. Being actually realized by the wise, it is undifferentiated, birthless, and non-dual. Again, beautiful way of putting, as a person goes on practicing discrimination, he will understand that every object in this world is only furthers our grief, intensifies our unhappiness, and pulls us deeper and deeper into the net of illusion and delusion. So slowly we have to give up. Give up what? We have to give up excessive attachment, but most importantly, the understanding that for me to be happy, I don't need to go anywhere. All the happiness is within me. This is said nivrittasya. So when the mind, chitta vritti nirodha, this nivritti word here is equivalent to chitta vritti nirodha. So when we go on practicing, not allowing the mind to think various things, but only to think one real object, which is God, then what happens? Apravrittasya. So the mind now is arrested in its wanderings. It doesn't want. And at the beginning it is forced not to go here and there. But after some time, when the understanding dawns, then what happens? It doesn't want to go. It has understood it is poison for me. Then what happens? Nischalahi tatha sthitihi. Sthiti means that state of attainment. What is the nischala? That is, it becomes completely motionless. Chala means motion. Nischala means motionless. It attains. And this is beautifully given in the Bhagavad Gita, giving the comparison. There is a lamp, oil lamp, and it is kept in a windless place. And then there is no flickering at all. Yatha deepo nivatasto na ingate sa upama smruta. For a controlled mind, this is the beautiful analogy. Just as a oil lamp kept in a completely windless place goes on giving light steadfastly, not flickering even to the least. That is the state of the mind. Vishayah sahi buddhanam tat samyam ajam advayam. Vishayah sahi buddhanam. This is the state of who? Buddhana, awakened people, realized souls. This is the state, non-natural state. Of course, at the beginning, they have to work very hard, but in course of time, through practicing again and again, they attain to that state. That is why it is said, it may take thousands of births. So that is why shaneihi uparamet buddhya dhriti grihitaya atmasastam manakritva na kinchid api chintayet. So bahunam janmanamante gnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevah sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha. It may take a long time, but what does it matter? Let it take, because our attempt is to go beyond time. And therefore, the more concentration we have, the less we become aware of the passage of time. Therefore, this is only when we are not attempting concentration, we fear, how long it will take. If you are suffering from such kind of fear, it may take many, many births. Right now, come to Varanasi, live here, and do not move from here. You will attain to that state. So there are a few very rare awakened souls are there. These awakened souls are called Buddhas. In fact, Gautama's name after realization is called Buddha. One who has awakened from the world of delusion, one who has awakened to the reality of his own true nature, which is Atma, self-realized soul. What happens? The same mind, which was so much distracted earlier, Samyam, Ajam, Advayam. So it becomes absolutely still. Samya means still. And then it realizes, Ajam, I was never born, even though it is a thought. It is expressed in the words of language, but whenever we are studying the scriptures, remember, our mind is functioning. And the nature of the mind also can help us. If my mind is calm and quiet, full of positive thoughts, complete faith in the scriptures and in the realization of the teaching of our own Guru, then it will not become agitated. Then it understands, I am really Ajam, unborn, Advayam. There is no second. Samsara means, world means second. But there is no world. I am alone. Ekameva Advitiyam, one alone. So the mind, thus freed from all attachments to any object and undistracted by any fresh objects, attains to its own state of immutability. Mutability means changefulness. Immutability means non-changing state. Being actually realized, there were people, there are people, there will be people who realize this state. And what happens? Being actually realized, so that state is undifferentiated, birthless, and non-dual. So a mind thus separated from its attachments and maintained away from the objects of its distractions attains to its own state of changeless purity. So Gaudapada is here giving a straight and pointed hint that everything depends upon the mind. And mind is of two types, as we have seen in the Amrita Bindu Upanishad. One is called Shuddham, another one is called Ashuddham. And further hint is given that mind alone is the root cause of both bondage and liberation. First of bondage and later on of liberation. And a controlled mind is itself the very nature of our own self. That is what Patanjali is telling, Tada Drashtu Swarupe Avasthanam. So there were men of wisdom, they attain to this state, it is not mere theory. They declare that the experience beyond the frontiers of the mind and intellect is the experience of the supreme reality, absolute, unborn, non-dual, and undifferentiated. And we have to have faith. I have seen Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Adityavarnam Tamasaha Parastat. Swami Vivekananda declared at the Parliament of Religions, I have really experienced that state. And that state is being further described here in the 81st Karika. Ajam, Anidram, Aswapnam, Prabhatam Bhavati Swayam. Sakrut Vibhataha Hi Eva Eshaha Dharmaha Dhatu Swabhavataha. That reality, which is free from birth, which is free from sleep and dream, reveals itself by itself. For this Atman is from its very nature ever luminous. What is the state? What is the description of the realization of the realized souls, as we have been discussing? Can it be really described? No. But language can point out the way. And that is being done here in this 81st shloka or karika. So what is the nature of my own nature? The nature of the Atman, the nature of the Brahman, Ajam, it is unborn, Anidram, and it is what is called sleepless, Aswapnam, and dreamless, and Prabhatam Bhavati Swayam. It is absolutely like when the sun starts rising in the east, then all darkness instantaneously, automatically vanishes. We don't need to say the sun is going to rise, so you will have to disappear like that. No, not at all. Prabhatam bhavati swayam. And sakrut vibhata, once the Atman starts shining. And when does it start shining? When all darkness is destroyed. What is the darkness? Our mind, which is constituted of time, space and causation. When we rise above this particular nature of the mind, which is of nature of limitation, then what happens? The light shines all by itself. We don't need to say, now I have removed the obstacles, you shine. And a beautiful example is given elsewhere. Imagine that there is a lighted lamp. It is covered by a thick pot and not one ray of light is coming out. Everything is completely dark. Now what is our attempt? We have to, first of all, slowly remove the pot. As we start lifting the pot, first a little gap is there, very, very minute gap. And then the light comes. With the help of that light, I know how to lift the pot more and more and more. And then when we succeed in completely removing that pot, then you don't need to say, oh light, now I have removed the pot, now you start giving light. Automatically, that very light helps us to realize that state. This is called dharma, means atma here. As I said, sometimes this Gaudapada, I wish he used straightforward known words. Instead of atma, he uses this word dharma. Dhatu svabhavataha. By its own nature, the atman, by its own nature, sakrut vibhataha, always is shining. All that we need to do is make an attempt to remove the obstacles. That's all. What happens? Swayam prabhatam bhavati. The light itself starts as if early in the morning, as if the sun is rising, and this automatically all darkness disappears. What is the nature of the self? Ajam. Oh, I thought I was born. Anidram aswapnam. These are the technical words. Nidra means sleep. Swapnam means dream. So earlier we have seen, just I am reminding you, though I should not remind you. So we have three states. So the waking state and the dream state, we suffer from anidra and we suffer from nidra and swapna. What is nidra? We do not know what is our true nature. This absence of one's own true nature is called sleep. Just as when a person is deeply asleep, he doesn't know where he is or what others are doing. And then swapna means dream. So both the waking and the dream states are mind-born. I like this person. Person is okay. I like, I dislike. These are all creations of our own mind. This is called dream state. So in both waking and dream, we suffer both from what is called imaginary understandings as well as complete absence of our own true nature. But in deep sleep, we only suffer not from dream, but from nidra. That's why it is called nidra. What is nidra? That is, I don't know who I am, but I am not suffering from diffusion of things. That is why half of the bondage is disappearing there. This is what technical language we call it avarana shakti and vikshepa shakti. For those who are familiar with these terms, avarana shakti is what is called the covering up of the truth. Vikshepa shakti means the scattering power of the mind. In both waking and dream, we suffer from concealment of our true nature, as well as we understand everything that I am not the self, nothing is the self, everything is different from everything else. But when it comes to deep sleep, I only suffer from one power of Maya, that is called, I don't know who I am, but at least I don't see anything else. So this is what happens when a person controls his mind. he realizes his own self, and then he wakes up to the truth that I am unborn, and I know what I am, and I do not imagine because there is no mind at all. And this is called Prabhatam. Early, the morning has dawned, the dawn has come. And once I come to that state, then I realize it is not something else, it is my own true nature. Very beautiful way of understanding, which we will discuss in our next class. Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Sritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. May the Ramakrishna Holy Mother and Swami Vivekananda bless us all with bhakti. Jai Ramakrishna.